Hi, this is Maria Riegger with another Positive Parenting with Astrology video. We are still in Gemini season. I hope it's going well for you. So we're celebrating Geminis today by talking about the number one, in my opinion, best Gemini trait. This is the best trait that your Gemini children can use to help the world, in my opinion. So we're going to be talking about that. Before we get into it, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for your free, regular, positive parenting with astrology content. If you're interested in getting even more parenting tips and information about how to manage current planetary transits, you can subscribe to my parenting email list, and the link is in the video description. Okay, so it's no surprise that the best Gemini trait has to do with language. Geminis are masters at verbal and written communication. Okay, most Gemini people learn foreign languages very easily if they are motivated to do so. And if you've seen my other videos on how to parent Gemini Sun and Gemini Moon kids, and I also talk about this in my book on Gemini children feel compelled to communicate. So they're constantly making mental connections, and at the same time, they are compelled to communicate those connections. Famous astrologer Stephen Arroyo describes it as this: that Geminis immediately perceive and verbalize all the mental connections they have. So because Geminis instantly understand and make these mental connections, then they're countless mental connections. This is a constant process that's going on in their heads. They are very good at differentiating the different connections. So as a result, because of that trait and because of their language abilities, Gemini people are very good at parsing out language and specifying different interpretations and being very precise when they use either oral or written language. Because they are carrying around so much data in their heads that they're able to differentiate the data by using precision of language. And in my opinion, this is the most interesting and probably the most useful Gemini trait. So all this makes Gemini people very good at language expression, oral and written expression. Sometimes, Geminis talk a lot, or they trip over their words because their mouths cannot keep up with the pace of their mental activity, which has always been a problem for me. I express myself much better through writing than through speaking, as you probably notice in some of these videos. It's not like that for all Geminis, but with the Gemini people I know, there does seem to be a preference for written language. So this is also a trait that makes Geminis good attorneys. If you watch my channel for a while, you'll know that's my day job. I'm a banking corporate attorney by day. And so Geminis are very good at using precision of language to engage in lawyer speak, right? Lawyers say things like this: I can guarantee you a response, I just cannot guarantee you the content of said response. Or they'll say things like, politicians will say things like this too: I promise to look at this issue. They don't promise to solve the issue or to even present solutions for the issue or deal with the issue in a way that will be satisfactory to you. They just promise to look at the issue. So Gemini, there are many reasons Geminis make good attorneys. They tend to come from a place of logic and rationality, which we've talked about in several other videos. And also it's this precision of language and parsing out language. So when you're interpreting codes, statutes, legal interpretations, case law, this ability to make distinctions based on very fine details is very useful, obviously, when you're practicing law. So just throwing that out there. So I'm going to give you a couple, an interesting example of this trait in action. So when I was studying for the law school entrance exam a long time ago, the LSAT, so we were sitting in this room, obviously, with these tiny wooden desks, right? And the proctor said, the only things you are allowed to have on your desks are 2 number 2 pencils and your ID card, driver's license for most of us, right? So I noticed, she said, we're allowed to have them on our desks. Are we required to have them on our desks? And I had these written instructions, exam instructions in front of me, like administrative instructions. And I reviewed the paper instructions, and nowhere on the paper did it indicate that we were required to have our IDs on our desks. Now, the desks are small. I don't want the desk to be cluttered with stuff. I'm a Gemini. My mind is cluttered enough already. So I raised my hand and I asked the proctor, are we required to have our IDs out on the desks so you can ostensibly match the ID with the person taking the exam, make sure nobody's, cheating? And she got annoyed with me and said, I just said that. I said, no, you didn't. You said we're allowed to have them on our desks. Nowhere in the oral or written communication I've received today does it indicate that we are required to. So she could not answer me. But to me, that distinction is obvious. Being allowed to do something is not the same as being required to do it. And to me, it was an obvious distinction. And that's the thing with Gemini people. We assume everybody makes these distinctions. And now that I've lived several years and have more life experience, I can tell you that not everyone makes those distinctions. And that becomes frustrating to Geminis, but also becomes frustrating to the people that Geminis communicate with. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. So there are some, I have some tips to give parents for navigating this trait with your Gemini children. So these are probably pretty obvious. We'll go over them anyway. One is be specific. Geminis appreciate specificity. For example, one day I told my son, please put this dish in the oven. And he proceeded to put it in the microwave oven. And I told him, no, the conventional oven, this one, the one below the stove. And he said, oh, sorry, he has a Gemini moon. And I said, no big deal. And I thought, obviously, it was obvious to me what I meant, because I'll say microwave if I mean the microwave, and I'll say oven if I mean the conventional oven. But he was younger, so it was not obvious to him. And this is something that I've encountered a lot throughout my life, is that the person communicating to the Gemini, in their mind, it is clear what they mean. They know exactly what they're talking about because they're the one communicating, and it's clear. And to the Gemini person, it's not always clear. We need very specific instructions. So when you're talking to your Gemini kids, especially when you're telling them what to do, giving them instructions, you have to be specific. Don't assume that they know what you're talking about. And this brings up something else. Remember, Geminis approach the world from a place of logic. They are not as emotionally intuitive as water signs. Water sign people, a lot of the time, they kind of intuit what other people are communicating to them through, nonverbal communication, nonverbal gestures, and they just have a sixth sense. Like Scorpio and Pisces kids seems to have a sixth sense about things a lot of the time. It's difficult to explain, but they seem to intuit what people intend to communicate, and Geminis are not like that. I've said before to people, I'm not a mind reader. You have to tell me exactly what you want or what you want to communicate to me. I don't read your minds. Water sign people, they appear to read minds. I'm not saying they do, but they intuit communication way better than Gemini people. Gemini people need precision of language. They need specificity. 2, be concise. We've talked about this in other videos. Your Gemini child is very good at picking out relevant information and discarding the irrelevant information because their minds are always so replete with information and full to the brim with information and data that there's only so much room in there. So they will take the very essential information and they will just discard what they deem to be non-essential. So when you're communicating to them, be concise. Tell them only what they need to know. For example, tell your Gemini child, hey, please empty the dishwasher. Boom. Don't say, empty the dishwasher. I've told you like 5 times. Why do I have to tell you? I'm not a maid. Why don't you help more at home? How can I get you to do this? Your message is clouded in all this extraneous info. I've had to dial this back too as a parent. My kid sometimes leaves his clothes after his shower on the bathroom floor. And I tell him several times, please pick your clothes up, put them in the hamper. And when I do, and I just gently remind him, he does it without any problem. He just forgot. But I have thought to myself, dude, again, take your clothes to the hamper. I am not your maid. But I don't say that. because there's no point. It won't achieve anything. The point is to get him to regularly pick up his clothes after his shower and put them in the hamper. That's all he needs to know. So sometimes kind of adding the extra stuff, right, blows off steam for the parent. But other than that, it really doesn't serve any functional purpose. It inhibits, with your Gemini children, it inhibits them from understanding the meat of what you're trying to communicate. Okay. And lastly, be patient. This is one of the best pieces of advice with Gemini children. Gemini people expect people to be specific. We ask a lot of follow-up questions to clarify things, right? Sometimes we forget because we're in our head. It's a different issue. We're talking today about this need for specificity. So we need to get to the relevant info, and we need you to be precise when you're communicating the relevant info to us. What I see a lot, I see people assume that Gemini adults and children are flighty or obtuse or just dumb because they don't understand, or naive because they don't understand. And that's not true. It's actually the opposite, because Gemini people see the nuances in interpreting different information, different pieces of data, in making mental connections. They need you to be very specific about what you're communicating, because you could say something vague and unspecific, and to the Gemini, they're automatically thinking, well, that could be this, that could be this, that could also be this. What does that mean? Like the example with the oven, it could be the conventional oven, it could be the microwave oven. Which oven are we talking about here? And if you have a toaster oven at home, it could be the toaster oven. That's kind of what I'm talking about. So it's actually a sign of the Gemini's intelligence, in my opinion. Of course, I would say that I'm a Gemini, that they need the specificity because they are able to make all these different interpretations, right, of information. They can see all the possibilities. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So this is, as we've said, in my opinion, the best Gemini trait. They have a real gift for language. So if your Gemini child shows a penchant for writing, which most Geminis do, public speaking, debate, by all means, please encourage that, because this is a characteristic that they can really use to help the world and help people, whether you're using it, you're an attorney or you're a writer or other things. This is a really good trait to develop. So encourage your Gemini children to write, to do public speaking, to do debate, anything, foreign languages, anything that involves the oral and written expression of language. That will help them to really hone this ability. And another thing is that you should encourage your Gemini children to express themselves verbally, articulate what they're thinking, articulate what they're feeling. And if you don't understand, you can ask follow-up questions. Or if you do understand, you can ask follow-up questions. Hey, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. So what you're saying is this. Am I understanding you correctly? That will help your Gemini child think about all the different nuances of interpretation and articulate them. So that will really help them perfect this ability, right? Practice makes progress. We're not always seeking perfection, because if you're seeking perfection, sometimes you give up because perfection is so hard to achieve. We're thinking more about progress. This is a fantastic trait to have and to encourage and develop in your kids. So that's the video for today. If you haven't seen it already, you can watch my video on how to parent Gemini sun children. I have a video on how to parent Gemini moon children. I have a great video on how to motivate your Gemini child to help at home, something all parents can use, right? More help at home. And if you're inclined to check out my book on Gemini children called Your Gemini Child, it's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and the links are in the video description. So thank you for watching. We'll be back next week.